Well, this is going to be a Scandus special episode on the Barefoot Miniatures channel. I am joined today by... Phil, international man of mystery now.
Apparently with a charming accent as well.
Yeah, I don't think they were properly listening to us. They must have just turned it out. So yeah, we got back from Scandus this last weekend, and we're going to be doing our rundown of... Because it's quite a... Not a famous event, but it is a famous event. It's
a proper international event.
Yeah, well, I think they had like a quarter of the people there were international this time. So yeah, we're going to basically be going over our lists and then giving everyone a rundown of what happened in our games and our basic thoughts on that and what we could have done any better or not. And just about the experience in general so that just people can get a feel for what it's like. So Scandus this year, hosted by Freddie and Chris in Maine. We turned up on day one. Now, go on, Phil.
Is this the Friday night we turned up? Or are you talking?
So, yeah, let's do the Friday. So Phil picked me up from work. We had a couple of pints. We went to the airport. We had a couple more pints, and thought we'd mosey on down to the flight. And having been to Scandus, this was the 5th time, so I've been 4 times before, and another event in Stockholm, Scorpius Interaction. I thought, I know international heresy event travel. But no, we ended up running for our plane, didn't we?
Screaming, A7, A7, which was the gate number. So it wasn't quite the cool, collected journey that I thought it was going to be, considering everything else had gone off like clockwork.
Yeah. So that actually Phil had packed with magnets, some magnetic strips on the bottom of his case, really solid magnetic things on the bottom of his bases, and was really sure that it would hold his army together for the trip.
If I'd walked to the gate, then I was pretty confident that my army would have been in one piece. But I don't think it was that did it, though.
No.
I don't think it was that was doing it. I think it was not the journey from the airport, because we got a cab, and that was quite nice and quite relaxed. It was when we turned up at the wrong hotel and had to get an electric scooter 3 kilometers across Stockholm to a completely different hotel. And
can I just say, those scooters are absolutely excellent. It's like the 4th time I've been on them now. And
I tell you what, I enjoyed it immensely. And it cost me like £3. Really, really enjoyed it. Thought it was a great way to get across. I wasn't happy though when we finally got to the hotel, and I made the fatal mistake of opening up my amazingly packed army to find it in complete pieces.
Well, shall we do army lists, and you can say whether it was broken or not as we go through the army list. So you go through yours first, and you can list all the breaks, and then I'll go through mine.
So I was taking the really underpowered army book, which is the Mech army book. And first model HQ, I had an Archmagus Prime on a Bayon with Augury Scanner, Rad Grenades, Cyber Familiar, Machinate Array that was mastercrafted. That was not broken. Then a Magus Dominus and a Bayon.
Yeah.
With Augury Scanner, Cyber Familiar, Machinate Array that was mastercrafted. That was also not broken. And then I had another.
Were they in the
Magos.
Were they in the big case or the little case?
They were, but 2 were in the little case. 1 was in the big case,
right,
because he was too tall. I had a second Magus Dominus on a Bayon for all the same equipment: Augury Scanner, Cyber Familiar, Machinate Array that was mastercrafted, and that was not broken. Can see a theme here, can't we? Then it gets into my troops choices: 5 Thalax with chain blades and melter bombs. I had 2 casualties from that unit where they'd snapped off at the knee joints. So two units, 2 models down at the moment. And then I had another 5 Thalax with chain bayonets and melter bombs. and I had another casualty, one just come clean off its base. Now we get a bit hairy. 5 Castellax with 5 Darkfires. The creme de la creme of my army. Like, they're in every mech list I write.
All in one unit, right? And it's
all in one unit, all like big tubs of wounds with those stupid bolt guns that I forgot the name of them now. Maxim bolters.
Yeah, Maxim bolters.
No, Maxim bolters. Just taking a second there. Only one of them survived intact. I had only one survived. I had snapped arms, snapped legs, snapped guns all over the gaff. Only one survived.
So this is now breakages in both cases because these are in the big box.
These are in the big case now. These are in the big, the big boy case.
And we've had Daleks in the small case.
Yeah, because they're just small enough to fit in. I also took 6 Myrmidons, 2 phased plasma fusels. And they were fine. They weren't snapping.
And they were
all right.
My models. I just like
they were, and they deserved to break. But Thanatar with is it Calyx? Thanatar Calyx? Yes, it is. With the Solex las cannon. That was snapped in so many different places. It was untrue. It was snapped at its hip joint, its arm joint.
Was this the one that had the body off that had been rolling about in the case?
Yeah. So the body had snapped off and rolled around, and just kind of made like some, I can imagine, comedic like game show where it thought, I'm just going to win everything else in the case. So yeah, that snapped there. That was not great. It also then led to more damages, which was my 2 other Thanatars, which had snapped arms off based off this as well. And they were just the normal Thanatars.
Because the body had gone rolling about in the case.
Because the roller had gone rolling about the case. My Calyx, I'd had Paragon of Metal. I forgot to mention that.
Now, that I imagine helps out with the precision shots to get a strength 10 las cannon with precision shots, right?
I will talk about that in my games.
Okay.
I took an allied detachment as well. It's a Titan Maniple detachment.
Yeah.
So with that, I had 15 Peltasts with Rad Carbines and Augury Scanner, and I think I had Rad Grenades on the main dude as well.
Well, they might as well contribute something because they're not line. And they're terrible.
Mate. No, they're not. No, they're not. These guys are like men, honestly.
Oh, we'll get to it in a sec, though.
Yeah, I just took them as like, oh, there they are to fill a gap.
You see, I thought the hammer shot ones were good, but the Rad Carbine.
18 inches, right? So it's not a great range. Strength 3, AP 5. Pretty poor. Assault 3, Brutal 2. Yeah, these guys. Brutal 2.
I don't know putting down. Is pretty brutal.
Brutal is brutal. They were putting down like 18 wounds on models. Every time they shot, they were putting down 18 wounds. So yeah, they were sexy.
Good job I've got a squad of 10.
Yeah. They were lovely. So that was my list. That
you missed out the Orsarch.
Oh yeah, the Secretary Arxarch. The probably the most useful model in my army that did absolutely nothing for 5 games.
But that was the plan, right? His plan was to just...
That was the plan. Because of his unique rules. He had Rad Grenades, an Augury Scanner, a Power Fist. And he took, with his unit rules, Binaric. Well, it gives him Preferred Enemy, which is a shareable USR, which when I plonked him into the Myrmidons, made it they hit on 2s, rerolling 1s, wounding on 2s, rerolling 1s. I don't feel good about myself doing it. And you'll probably see a theme throughout my games as to why I don't feel good about myself doing it.
Yeah, and what I will say is, everyone, don't turn off right now. It was a fair. Scandus is pretty slappy, or can be. So yeah, that's your list done, isn't it?
That's it. Not a lot of models, a lot of breakages.
So I too went with a not a lot of models approach. I didn't get as low as you in the model count, but I thought I need something that transports. I want something that's a bit showy for my army. And I've just finished the unit by Encircle, right, like a couple of months ago, not taking them to event yet. So I thought, right, how can I make these work, like do work? And so I settled on a Warsmith with Thunderhammer, Boarding Shield, and Mastercrafted. On the Thunderhammer, obviously. The Thunder Spear. I had a Vigilator, 2 lots of 10 Tactical Marines. The Sergeant had Artificer Armour. They all had Shrapnel Bolters, Voxes, in Rhinos with Shrapnel Bolters, Pintle Heavy Bolters, which are Shrapnel.
Shrapnel cannons. Yeah.
I had 2 Las Rapiers, 2 stock standard Apothecaries, 8 Seekers with 3 Combi Melter, Sergeant with Artificer Armour, Melter Bombs on the entire squad, in a Rhino with the pinning Heavy Bolter, Shrapnel Bolter setup. I had a Predator with Decurion with autocannon las searchlights, which I don't know why I gave him the Decurion. It's never worth reacting with that autocannon at all. There was never a point where it went, oh yeah, it's worth a reaction point to shoot back that autocannon. If it was like las or
Melter,
like las, Melter, Plasma, yeah, great. But when you were allowing armor saves, it's just not worth spending a reaction allotment for that. So then we're on to the slappy part of the list. I then had 4 Iron Circle, which was going with my Warsmith, and 2 Leviathans that were stock standard. So
how did they transport that Leviathan? How did they Leviathan that I was transporting?
I've been sort of glossing over how my army transported, and that's because I can give a singular judgment, which I'll save to the end. So with that, I had a Magos, and that was that was fairly good for making the Iron Circle react quite a lot, and 6 Thalax with multi-melters, melter bombs. Oh yeah, it was a Cybernetica Magos. In that, I had all my Domitar, my Magos, which is pretty spindly, in the big case where the Thanatar was rolling about in, and I had 0 breaks, and the rest of the army suffered 0 breaks. Because I like to use super glue rather than water to glue my.
I don't know.
Together.
Honestly, it must have been like that super glue was going off or something, because the way they fell apart was ridiculous. Now, obviously, I've not seen them on the way home. How have they survived on the way home?
I've not yet looked. I've not.
Oh, Max, what have you done to me?
You don't want to know, really. You don't want to know.
No, just fix them. Just fix them for me.
I will. I'll glue the legs to the shoulders and the hands to the legs.
Shoulders, knees and toes. Knees and toes.
So yeah, I had a pretty solid core of the list in the Leviathan and Iron Circle, and it was just like I didn't want to take a super shooty gunline Iron Warriors list. I wanted something a bit different.
Yeah.
That was a bit of a ball.
Do you want to explain a little bit about why the Iron Circle and the Arch Magos was so good? Or are you saving that for
no. With that. So I think a quick one would be Scandus event rules limited units to only 1 reaction a turn. You couldn't react with the same unit every phase.
which really screwed me over in some games. You know,
It
like
did
it
my
was
Thalax
really
in.
harsh.
Yeah,
really harsh.
It did my Thalax in quite a lot because Thalax it limited their mobility because you couldn't move in the movement phase and move in the shooting phase.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's in a normal game, those Iron Circle with the reactions being turned on by the Magos could move forwards and backwards to dance in and out of like charge range and make charges longer when I wanted them to be, or move up when I wanted to chase down a unit. It lets me evade in the shooting phase, or if I've already lost some wounds and got off the reaction which ignores the first wound done to the unit every shooting attack, it means that I had 2 battlesmiths in that unit with the Magos and the Warsmith. So I could I could return fire and get 2 wounds back. And in the assault phase, it means I'm already holding the line with the shields.
Because they automatically get that, don't they?
Do that.
Yeah.
And it means I can overwatch and restore 2 wounds. And their 4 shrapnel cannons all have pinning, so it's the chance of pinning an assaulting unit. And basically, as we go through it, because this has only just happened, I can remember how much it did, almost, and I'll give it a quick rundown because it was the core of my list in each game was that unit of circle, and sort of how I did very much was underpinned by by that circle unit. Yeah. So shall we go into the first mission, Phil?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So we dived in on day one. It surprised me there wasn't actually a briefing for the start of the event. I think they expected everyone to have read the players pack.
What players pack?
I think everyone knew what was in there, but in game one, you go with your game one first, Phil. I did my army list last.
So I played a Scandus veteran, and I knew this because he had a couple of medals on, and I thought they were pretty cool, by the way. So people who'd been to multiple Scandus campaigns had like medals pinned to their chest, Scandi. And I played a chap called. No, I don't either. I played a chap called Sebastian, and he was a great player, really, great for my first game, and he was taking an infiltrating Raven Guard list. It was probably the worst list to play against me because you can't infiltrate with Raven Guard against mech, especially if you've got Thalax. Because of their Jin sight, I had an augury scanner on every unit, so he just couldn't deploy where he wanted to.
And so that was important because
there was in this mission it was Dawn of War, and there was 6 objectives, like 2 in no man's land, 1 in each deployment.
No, it's 2 in each deployment, 2 in no man's land. So it's 6 total objectives.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah,
and so basically, you score 1 for the objective in your own deployment zone, 2 for in no man's land, 3 for in your opponent's deployment zone.
Yes. Yeah. So, I got turn 1, and basically the mech opened fire, and took out a couple of units. Nothing huge, nothing bad, but.
In getting turn 1, you'll have deployed first, or did you seize?
I deployed first.
So you'll have got the drop on where your Thalax could go as well. So it wasn't even like he could deploy well.
Yeah,
he's like,
that was the thing. So I got the drop, I was able then to deny him starting our objectives. Couldn't start on the objectives that were scoring big points, and it meant my Thalax then were able to jump onto the objectives in turn 1. So not a lot of shooting there happened. It was quite tame. And then he advanced forward with some more Dathan, a tactical squad, and a dreadnought. And another tactical squad was camped out on the side. And I was like, all right, okay then. And I was like, I just at this point I was like, Sebastian, where's the rest of your army? And he was like, oh, it's in outflank and in deep strike. So a third of his army was in reserves, which I thought was really, really brave. Second turn came around, and I scored some points. I was killing I killed a tactical squad with my Castellax that had moved around the side and moved towards his outflank marker. So nothing huge, really. Still quite tame. I was winning on points here, around 6-2.
Yep.
So still really easily for him to do it. And in his second turn, what he was banking on was all his stuff to come in from deep strike and outflank. It came on from deep strike, and he had a unit of Dark Furies with his Praetor, which I'm terrified as a mech player. Like, because they get shred and rending 5. They just go through Castellax quite easy. And then a unit of Deliverers, deep strike in as well. So two quite terrifying units. These Dark Furies charge my Castellax, and I then issue a challenge with my Magos, who punks his Praetor immediately. And then the Deliverers fail a 3-inch charge.
So why did you punk him so easily? Because this is something that I let you skip over in the army list.
So my Magos is strength 7 in combat. And with rad grenades, sorry, I've got a really itchy nose. With rad grenades, it puts you down at toughness 3. Mm. I use all my attacks through a machinima array. So a Magos is 2 attacks base, 1 for 2 close combat weapons, and gets 2 more for using a machinator array. So he's throwing 5 attacks, needing 5s, re-rolling at least one of them. And then wounds on 2s, re-rolling them because the machinator array's got shred. And because he's a monstrous creature, ignores unwieldy.
Crazy.
It makes me feel all warm and tingly, I'm telling you. It makes me feel all warm and tingly.
Well, see, that was the monstrous on, like, ignoring unwieldy was a real sleeper, I think. It's only something that got pointed out to me in the context of the Ruinstorm Demons list.
Yeah.
And I didn't know it before then. But that is so massive.
So, like, Magos is, because they don't die from taking Thunderhammer shots, because they're toughness 6, and then they've got a 3-up invulnerable. They're really good at challenging combat characters. If they've got rad grenades, you charge, they charge, whatever. I mean, it's better if they charge you, because then your rad grenades go off, you challenge them, you then kill them.
Yeah.
It's really bad. And I think at that point there, like, Sebastian, like, he was like, are we going to just start getting drunk? And I was like, yeah, man, that sounds the best thing ever. And we just, like, crushed a couple of beers, and he was kind of like, yeah, I think this is, like, you know, I think you've got this. Like, after failing, like, a 3-inch charge, you're killing my Praetor. I think you've really got it. And I was like, yeah, I think you're right, you know, but let's play through. And it came to, like, 12-4 in the end. His outflankers came on, and he was like, oh, I'm just going to, like, try and kill your warlord. And I was like, and there was a theme throughout the entire weekend, no one killed that warlord.
Nice.
So my Archmagus and the Bayant, no one did it. And yeah, we called it, as he brought on a plasma gun squad from outflank, a massive tactical squad. And he had a Contemptor that I failed to mention that had actually stomped up the field. He went straight into the Castellax squad. Like, I'm going to get rid of that because they've killed my Praetor, they've killed my Dark Furies, they're going. Which, yeah, I can see why he did it, but yeah, didn't go too well. That they didn't like doing it,
isn't it? It's the same thing I tend to encounter with my Iron Circle, because even though it's brutal 3, even though it's wounded on 2s, by taking the wounds out in the order that you want, it's
it's just subs of wounds, just huge subs of wounds. Oh, I got it wrong. Sebastian was the only person, that killed my warlord. He was the only person. That's because he spent 2 turns shooting nearly 2,000 points worth of army at it. And he finally died turn 4, which was, I was like, all right, fair enough then. Yeah, but really great game though. Great guy. We both forgot the secondary secret missions that were on Scandus, where you had to pick something to do, which got you campaign points. Just as like my warlord was really hard to kill throughout the entire thing, I failed to do a single campaign point secondary throughout the entire weekend.
Right. Well, we'll see what I got up to on them. So I played Stefan, friend of the channel, Stefan, who we were supposed to be meeting up with on Friday night, but who got very drunk, apparently waiting for us in Bar Anchor, and ended up going home at 2 when we'd still not turned up because of having to get a scooter around the city. But yeah, so we got a game in first. Stefan had 3 Leviathans, because we'd conferred before the event to like make it. So I ended up talking to a couple of people like pre-event, like him and Jens, to make sure the list that I was bringing wasn't going to be unfun for the people that I knew was playing. So it was like,
maybe I should have done that.
Well, I'd already talked to these people a fair amount, so and like, so knew I was playing, and so he was like, right, well, let's get a decent game. So yeah, 3 Leviathans. He had a squad of Terminators with a Herald, a Fellblade, 2 Arcus, which did work across the game, and a couple of tactical squads, like to score his points, along with the Herald.
Squad. Yeah,
he did have an assault squad and a heavy support squad, I believe.
No.
It was just a tactical squad, actually, that I'm thinking it was a heavy support squad that just annoyed me enough across the game that it was like a heavy squad. So turn 1, no score, obviously. We just sort of stomped up to each other. My Predator took out an Arcus because I went first, so got the drop on him. And Stefan moved his Leviathan blob up, and I actually moved my... Oh no, I was out of range with my Iron Circle. So, yeah, he moves up, and as I go into my turn, like, it's pretty ineffectual on the first turn, both of us. As I moved up with my Iron Circle towards his Leviathans in the centre, he reacted forward with 1 Leviathan, and I was like, right, I know I've got my target this turn. So I charged the blob into his Leviathan. My Leviathans started trailing behind on the far left. Like he'd sort of positioned well that would keep their like slower movement 6 out of it for a while. But I managed to take out a Leviathan in 1 turn, which I was pretty happy with, which then sort of unlocked me for getting reactions again.
Right.
So being able to dance around that a little bit allowed, even though in his turn, I think it was turn 2 that he took out my Predator, I could sort of pull back a little bit, and then on my turn 3 got the charge into his Terminator blob. And we started going to town. I thought, I'll just bonk all of these, and forgot just how many people I would need to kill in like an 11, 12-man Terminator squad, including the characters, that it just wasn't going to happen with my Magos, Warsmith and 4 Iron Circle. I've just not got enough attacks for all that to come off. So then I got bogged down fighting this swarm of Terminators that managed to drag down a couple of Iron Circle.
I mean, 10 Tartarus Terminators is nothing to sniff at, by the way.
Not with the Lightning Claws having shred as well.
Yeah.
Pulled my Iron Circle.
And rending 6 up.
Yeah.
They're pretty filth.
It's no Dark Fury's Raven's Talons or Deliverers with Raven's Talons, but going at initiative with so many attacks, allowed them to drag down my initiative 3 stuff before they could strike. Because that's one of the key things about the Iron Circle, is they're bonking people at initiative 3 before Terminators get to go with their Thunderhammers. So you're normally reducing the attacks coming in quite a lot. So because they're not doing that, they took down my attacks a little bit, managed to survive, and then I got piled into by the 2 Leviathans on Stefan's side. Now, at that point, I think this game swung between both of us being like, oh, it's all gone. he piles in with these Leviathans. I'm like, it's over. It's all over. But just managed to hold on with, I think it was like one Iron Circle, my Magos and my Praetor. And it's just, part of that is bouncing between the 3-up save and the 4-ups on the Iron Circle that can tank the instant, what would be instant death to the Warsmith.
Tasty, that, innit?
Yeah, just being able to bounce them was really good. I piled in my two Leviathan reserves and managed to win the combat just really slowly and grindingly over. I think they were in combat from it was like 4 rounds of combat, I think, or something stupid like that, maybe 3, but just really like ground them down. And on the final turn, I had my secondary objective, which was to get my Warlord onto a victory point in the enemy deployment zone. And I was like, right, he's tactical squad. I was 20 inches away, which with the Iron Circle's movement of 8, like from the nearest objective this is, with the Iron Circle's movement of 8, I need like a 10-inch charge to be able to get into the squad. So I'm measuring all this out, spend ages thinking about it, move my Iron Circle. Well, he can just react back, can't he?
Yeah, just moves back.
Just move back out of the way. Oh, it was something. It was that, or he killed off the Ultramarines from somewhere. Oh, and I was like, oh, fine, I'll charge into the Fellblade. So I charged into the Fellblade, blew it up because Fellblades aren't that brilliant against haywire hammers.
Oh, right,
Stuff like that. I had Chain Fist on my Magos, so strength 10 with Armor Bane. So I did it in fairly handily. And yeah, so we managed to actually draw on our primary objectives. I got a 4, 3, 1. He got a 1, a 5, and then a 2, giving us 8 each. So then it came down to secondaries, of which my Warlord was still alive. Because I'd not got a Lord of War, Stefan didn't have the chance to get Price, which I just scored at the end of the game. And with that, and I got Last Man. So it was, really coming down to secondaries, if I'd have just happened to slip a couple of wounds onto my Magos, my Warlord could have died. Last Man was very close. I think there was like 2 units in it or something like that. Which if, say, like my Vigilator had died, because he's so easy to kill, that's then 1 unit. And I think my Seekers might have been on 1 person left or something stupid like that. Do you know, like it was just so close. So yeah, he managed to come out to an Iron Warriors victory in game 1, but just by the skin of my teeth, really. Even though I had the Iron Circle stomping about, the Arcus, one of the Arcus was still about shooting for 4 turns. Absolutely doing my head in. But yeah, really, really good and fun game to start off the weekend with.
Nice. Yeah. Nice.
So what did you do in game 2, Phil? Do you want me to read out what the mission was?
So the mission was like a clash of the lines. So the traitors that were winning at the moment were the attackers, were the defenders, and the loyalists were the attackers. And basically, the loyalists had to get as many scoring units from their deployment into the opponent's deployment. Okay, so really fun mission. It makes you engage. Now, because I was the defender, I had to deploy first, which was where I went massively wrong. Because I then played Stefan with his Fellblade, 3 Leviathans, 10-man tactical squad, 10-man Terminator squad, with Herald, 10-man assault squad. And I deployed, and I thought, oh, I've got a good deployment here. I can see most of the battlefield. Didn't really measure anything out. And Stefan just went and plonked all his stuff in the opposite corner. Just like literally put it all in the opposite corner, and nearly everything was out of range for 3 turns.
Really?
Yeah. So I had my Myrmidons on my far right, and they stomped up, evaporated a unit, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm not happy with that. killed them, like immediately killed them. My Calyx Thanatar was on Fellblade duty, so that was just in the first 2 turns was just stopping that from firing by penning it and then using shock pulse. And then I don't know why, so his Terminators were moving up the board, his Assault Squad were moving up the board, and my Peltas then came into their own with their Assault 3. Brutal 2, Strength 3. They just like deleted units as they were running up the board. But with Terminators being 2 wounds and 2 up save, just really couldn't do anything about them. One of Stefan's Arcuses I was able to blow up. The other one he immobilized in the first turn. But it really didn't matter because it's got a turret and that's the gun you want to fire. It was just taking it out. The Leviathans were immense. They killed 1 unit of Thalax and killed another one down to a robot, a man, an android. And we're just literally like walking over all the terrain. Because the board I was playing on, I don't know if you played on it after this, I think, had the Thunderhawk on it.
Yeah.
Loads of terrain where his Leviathans just ignored it all and just walked right through it. And I was like, oh, I can't stop you. So really great game. Me and Stefan were having a few drinks. We're having a bit of a chat and everything. And it ended up 6-1, I think it was, to him. Now, I in turn 4, I was shooting at his Terminator squad that had the Herald in it. The Herald had 1 wound left, and he had like 5 Terminators with it. And I got the squad down to 1 Terminator and the Herald, and if I'd killed the Terminator or the Herald, I would have won the game. But instead, he won, and it turned up to be like 6-2.
What, including the secondaries?
Including the secondaries. So he got attrition, last man standing. Then he got his points. He got 3 points for being in my deployment zone. And he got another one. I think it was like Linebreaker was another one on there as well. So really great game. Fellblade didn't do a lot of damage, I've got to be honest, but the Strength 12 Brutal 3 or Brutal 2 demo cannon, I mean, I want to get some Vindicators after seeing that thing play against me. It was awful. Absolutely awful.
But it's a really nice looking tank as well. Like, so Stefan's army looks really nice, and he's painted that Fellblade well. But yeah, he's a cool looking tank. He's a nice centerpiece for the army, and I think the outriders of the Leviathans. Do you know, like the sort of like the Secret Service Leviathans running alongside it?
Yeah,
it's a nice looking army.
They should have put shades on every single one of them.
Yeah.
It was a tough game. It was a great game. Really enjoyed playing him. He was fantastic. Again, having a few beers with him, but it was probably one of my hardest. It was probably one of the hardest games I played that weekend.
Yeah. So I played Anton, who was playing World Eaters with Black Shields. And he had Garrow in there as well. Now, it was Anton's, I think, 4th game ever of Heresy. So I didn't want to introduce him to, like, Senor Magos and his Iron Circle buddies. Or her Iron Circle buddies, I suppose. So I put my Magos with the Thalax and was going to deep strike them. And it was just to cause him a bit of a headache. He's taking the Crimson Path, which only allows you 1 heavy support choice, but it's the same as, or similar to the Cyberthurgic power, where you ignore the first wound done to, like, the first one, he was ignoring the first wound done to each unit, each phase. So it's not per attack, but each phase. And with my low number of attacks, like, he's a very hard hitting army, but say like the Vigilator is 1 shot, so unless I fired something else there before, he wasn't doing anything. Or like my Rapiers, that's 4 shots, so just immediately ignore one of, like, you hit, you wound, well, just ignore one of them. And I really got a taste of my own medicine having pulling that cyberthurgy power, because oh my god, it was so egregious. It was horrible to play against. It was really good, like in a good way. It really made me think about what I was having to do, and it was actually a really hard game. With now the Iron Circle not being able to like react to mitigate damage with evade, or like move backwards and forwards to play with what unit's going to be running into them. Not be like stuff like that it was just a massive turn for that unit. Luckily, I managed to sort of choke point him because it was Anton that was trying to get into my deployment zone. We had a few pieces of terrain that we ended up fighting in between. Like in the centre, I had my Iron Circle, so they managed to gank something there and then run back over to the other side on the right hand side of the board to head off Garrow's unit or 2 units of Psychos. And had left my tactical squads in like a strategic reserve at the back of the board. So it basically ended up that my Leviathans and Iron Circle were taking on all of these squads.
Yeah.
And I was like, eventually they will fail. Eventually. Like, Garrow ended up taking down the Iron Circle squad and slaying my Warlord in a challenge in this game, but my like sort of Thalak strategic reserve and mainly the tactical marines even just waited until turn 4, jumped out of the rhinos and like a fury of an Olympiad into his line units that were getting close to my deployment zone, and it's literally just from that and pinning his units at the end of the game and having this final thing to just jump out and do it. And who knew tactical marines? With their damage output, saving the game for me.
Are you going to link your tactical marine tactician?
The tactical marine guy
below. The tactical marine tactician below.
Yeah, well, it's there. That way.
That way.
We're pointing different ways. Is that way?
Oh, I can't see you because my picture's there.
Everyone
so wherever which way
suggested over there.
That way, whichever way it is.
Really good game, and yeah, he was on to game 4. Sorry, game 3. Game 3. Who did you play?
So funny enough, after playing Stefan, your opponent, I then played Anton.
Lazy
I know,
matchmaking from Freddie.
You've been through his list. You missed out that he had a 10-man las cannon squad, and he also had a Castaferum dreadnought with 2 close combat weapons.
So the last cannon squad is actually what I was thinking of when I was saying about my Vigilator, because normally that would be the thing that I just like ping off into the heavy weapons squad.
Ping, pin, but then you can't because it ignores the first wound. So he also had a 5-man assault squad that were painted as black shield death guard. So in this one, there's an objective in the middle that you could score from turn 2 and an 18 ring bubble around it, I think. And he deployed really close to the objective and created a little bit of a shooting gallery for my mech, unfortunately. Bunched a lot of stuff up. So my Thanatars were popping their overcharge with their plasma mortars twice. I killed Garrow and two squads almost immediately. And then after that, healed back the wounds. The Castellax were in range straight away, and they took out another squad. I can't remember what it was. I think it was a tactical squad. The Myrmidons killed the heavy support auto cannon squad. Just incinerated that straight away. So, like, all the big threats were kind of gone, apart from this 10-man las cannon squad. So, this was in, like, turn 1 and 2. So, killed, like, 2,000 points with his army, and I hadn't lost anything at this point. And we was chatting to him, and he's like,
you feel
oh,
bad
yeah.
about yourself, Phil? Well, you should.
Yeah, actually, I do. Actually, I do. I felt horrible about myself, honestly, because then I didn't know about this about Anton, but like he was like, "Oh yeah, you're my fifth opponent," and I was like, "What, over the weekend?" He's like, "No, ever," and I was like, "Oh mate, I'm so sorry. Like you shouldn't be playing this list. It's absolutely awful."
Yeah, well, this is the culmination
awful.
list of you getting absolutely decimated for like
Panned in the UK, absolutely
not just
panned in the UK.
just, like you've really come up on it and you've worked on it and know how to play it now.
Yeah,
For like well over a year, you've been working on using this list.
This is what I was saying to him. I said, like, I've been playing this mech list in particular the best part of a year, and like I've been, so I know what I'm doing with this list. I know how it works. And he was like, "All right, okay, then do you play anything else?" I was like, "Sons of Horus occasionally, Space Wolves occasionally, but I always go back to this mech list. It's like my number one." And he was like, "All right, okay." And he was like, "How many games?" My number one. And he's like, "How many games have you had with the mech?" I was like, "Easily 30 or 40. And he was like, and that's when he told me that he'd had 5 games in total. I was like, "Oh man." Really good guy, really nice. Love chatting to him. It was great to see how he'd done his hobby, because he was like Garrow with World Eaters and Black Shield, Death Guard, and I really liked the ideas behind it. We called it turn 3, and I think it was 12 nil.
Well,
or 13 nil.
Well, I had basically the same experience as you, but in reverse. So I played Jens in my third game, who is from the Northern Heresy podcast. I've played. He's come over. He's played in Company of Legend the year that
Company of Legends, yeah,
like a good few years ago now. And then like I've played in Battlefleet Gothic a few times, and just like done some peripheral stuff. But this was my second game ever against Jens. And as I said, we conferred on our lists before the event, and then the sneaky fuck put the lion in the night before. And I knew
I'm not upset about this. I am not upset about this at all.
So I knew I was going to have a problem with the Tyrannic Greatswords, which is why I thought like the 2 Leviathans and Iron Circle is, it's not going to be a one-sided thing that I'm going to stomp him. But God, the lion, he didn't do any slapping in the first turn of combat, but he really did some slapping after that. But the Tyrannic Greatswords, man, just 11 dudes with Tyrannic Greatswords in a companion squad, just hitting
nasty,
me on 2s. 5s were murderous strikes, and the amount of attacks just came through. And it took him like two rounds of combat, 3 rounds of combat to get through my entire unit, which is just unheard of. Like that's, and I know he's a Primarch, but as I said, like the lion wasn't doing that. Do you know as much as you actually think he would? Because he's only got like 6 attacks or something.
It's the 20 other attacks that are going through.
Yeah, all with Murderous Strike. And it's just doing in my monstrous creatures left, right, and centre. But so that was done. That combat, we had this combat in the centre, but before the combat was done and my main unit was taken out, there was some nice little interplay onto the objective, like dancing forwards, dancing back with the Thalax. He had a recon squad on their first turn, and then got his tacticals on their second turn. And the end of turn scoring they did all events. I really liked. Like I used to like starter turn scoring in Heresy 1. But I've really shifted mindset to end of turn scoring is better in Heresy 2, because it means that even if you're losing and you've got a worse list, you only need to kill that unit on the objective and you can score.
To then make you feel like you're participating in the game. Yeah, I completely agree. I'm well for end of turn scoring. Also, I think like I like to see big scores in games. So that's just a personal preference. That's not anything. Oh, it's because it's tactically like this. But like you can score pretty much from turn 1 all the time. So I like it better, to be fair.
Now, what I don't like, Phil, is Sisters of Silence, it seems. So I played Sisters of Silence when I went over to...
Oh, please tell me why you don't like this unit.
I went to Adepticon, played some Sisters of Silence, got a little taste of what they were like, and Jens had like a Knight Oblivia or whatever that when she gets into combat, before initiative step 10, rolls a dice.
Before initiative step 10?
Yeah.
Before initiative step 10? All right, okay.
Right, so at the start of combat, rolls a dice. On a 1, one of your opponents doesn't do anything. You take a wound. On a 2 to 6, though, your opposing model goes down to weapon skill 1. So he got into my Leviathan that was on the ground level, not the one that there was one that all game I just climbed the Thunderhawk with for moral support. So that everyone could see that he was the banner bearer on the Thunderhawk. But no, the one that was on ground level, Hyron Denominees, was weapon skill 1 for these 5 annoying Sisters of Silence knights the entire time, and just was hitting on 6s, was being hit on 2s, and they went through my Leviathan in combat. It was crazy, just because of this stupid 2 to 6 result of making me go weapon skill 1.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
Like it. You don't like it.
I think it's brilliant. I think my Space Wolves need to have a unit of them.
Well, it was my tactical error, really, right? Because I should have put my other Leviathan in at the same time, and then one of my Leviathans a turn would have
chewed through that. Because it's the model, isn't it? It's not the unit, it's the model.
Yeah, so as far as I know, that is the counter. Just have a second Leviathan rocking about.
How to counter this? Just take another Leviathan.
Yeah, well, I'd already taken it, Phil. I'd already taken it, but yeah, it was really annoying. But it was well played. Turn 3, I decided that I'd had enough. That was when I went second. That's when I decided I'd had enough and basically started running away. So I used my last 2 turns to move everyone back towards my deployment zone and board edge, because I was like, we've had enough, lads. Let's go.
Great, lads, leg it.
That was it. He's like, minimise the last man standing and attrition in Jens's favour, because I'm not gaining anything from staying near the central objective. I'm just going to get mulched by the lion. And that's essentially what happened. Is Jens shooed me in as we ended the day. So yeah, that was game 3. Then we went out on the town, didn't we? We managed to sink
one beer.
A pint.
Had a pint. It cost me a tenner. I had one £10 pint and then went back to bed. Well, it cost you 80 kroner to get in and 80 kroner for a pint.
Right.
So it was almost a tenner for one pint. It's more. It's 12 quid.
Whatever it is.
Whatever it was. It was a tasty pint, but we were tired.
Yeah, but that was it. We didn't get there to like 12 again, did we?
Yeah. Not eating the best of food or anything like that, which I always find at an event. If you eat shit food, you always end up feeling really tired.
Who knew?
Yeah, who knew?
So, shall we just go on to second day?
Day 2.
Yeah. So, it is game 4.
No. I want to go right from the beginning, by the way, where Alex was absolutely disgusted at the amount of bacon and sausage we demolished in the morning.
So, Alex, who we'd met up with, that you can see on the Badab casts, the Badab After Dark, and also from the Death and Betrayal podcast. Yeah, we were sharing a room with him. He was the Canadian that we mentioned before. And he doesn't know how to do breakfast, does he, Phil?
No, he does a shit breakfast. He ate melon and grapes.
Yeah, a couple of... I mean, that's a perfectly fine accompaniment to the main
half a side of... Yeah, 10 slices of bacon.
Yeah. But Alex thought that'd be an appropriate breakfast before a gaming event. I went in hard in two completely different directions, of which I thought it was continental breakfast. So cut myself like a ton of bread to have with like cheese and ham.
It's like a baguette rounds, weren't it? Like
Yeah, well,
baguette
that's
rounds.
what I created, yeah. Whereas if I'd have just sliced my baguette the other way, I could have had a nice bacon butty out of it when I realised that there was bacon on offer. So then I went and filled my plate with bacon, leaving no space for scrambled egg, and was like, oh, idiot.
Ruined it.
Yeah, just
Ruined
went
it.
complete. Do you know, like, just blew my load on my, like, didn't leave
Got
any
too giggy.
areas of the plate. Yeah.
Got
It was
too
good
giddy
bacon,
and didn't know how to pull out.
It
yeah.
was good bacon.
Yeah.
That's what
See,
I said.
I got a chunk of brie and some rye bread, which I thought, oh, that's amazing. Like 10 slices of bacon, a couple of sausages, and scrambled egg, but it had the foresight so I could put it all together. That scrambled egg was great, mate. You missed out. You missed out.
Yeah. So, right. Do you want to go into the coffee that we had, or do you want to just go into the games now?
I didn't have a coffee, unfortunately, so I can't tell anybody about how good that was.
It was nice. Alex got us a good coffee. So, yeah, game 4, we went into Escalation, which essentially there was this like sort of mini game of placing objectives before. Players alternate placing objectives on the battlefield, 2 in each deployment zone, 2 in the middle, and you could deploy in your opponent's deployment zone if you wanted. So there was this
with the objective.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
the
yeah.
objective.
Deployment objectives in the deployment zone, which was nice because you could be like, well, like, if I go in my opponent's deployment zone to make it easier for me and harder for them to defend, like, I can do that, but then I'm sacrificing my own deployment zone potentially. However, it was all rendered entirely moot because I was playing Hermione, who was playing a 9 Dreadnought, 6 Contemptors, 2 Deredios list for Space Wolves, so they were getting +1 weapon skill on the charge. He had a Recon squad, a Seeker squad, and 2 units of Thalax. And
wore you like a glove.
oh my god! So I was like, right, the Iron Circle can at least give it a little go. Like, I'm gonna try. So I deployed my like death ball on the left. He deployed his death ball on the right, facing mine. There was a bit of action on like my right hand side of the table, but basically it was just going to come down to positioning and how many dreadnoughts went into my Iron Circle all at once. For the first turn, like, we just moved up, positioned a little bit, no real shooting going on. Second turn, I'd managed to like move up and then react back so that it sort of strung his charge out a little bit. So if he'd have attempted it, it wouldn't have got as many in. And that also allowed me to just like drag out the game a little bit because he then didn't charge in his turn 2. What he did do on turn 2, though, was score 12 points.
Shit.
Yeah, so no scoring in turn 1. Turn 2, he scored 12, and that's because he had 10 scoring units, Phil. 2 Thalax to be really fast, 6 Contemptors, Recons. He had a couple of Recon. I think he might have had 2 or 3 Recon squads, some of which were shotguns, so he's a tasteful character. But yeah, with just so much scoring, I knew like I'm just gonna have to give it a good fight. And yeah, turn 2 scoring 12, I was like, there's no way I can move forward to take any of these objectives until I've dealt with the Contemptors. I'll worry about scoring after I can actually do anything about board control.
Yeah.
So yeah, I moved back. In my turn 2, I charged my Leviathans. My Iron Circle failed a charge on a 3 inches.
Oh no!
Like I rolled a 3, I needed a 5, or something like that. Now, I'd taken a few wounds up to now, and on my Iron Circle, I thought, all right, I'll repair some. So I rolled my Warsmith. This is like the 6th time I've tried to repair with the Warsmith. Failed. don't get any wounds back with either the Magos or the Warsmith. And up to now, I've managed to repair 0 wounds on the circle the entire event. So they go in, the Leviathans go in, and both of which fail to kill the single Contemptors that they're up against. Luckily, the Contemptors don't kill them, but I was like, oh, this is terrible. And get stuck in combat. So his turn comes around. My Iron Circle blob, there's no way I'm going to be able to pull the same trick of reacting back again because he'll just get too close.
Yeah.
So he pairs off another Dreadnought into each of my Leviathans, and then my Iron Circle get mobbed with like 4 Dreadnoughts or something stupid like. I think it was 2 in combat, and then like he had a dual Melter Dreadnought and a Deredio that was all positioned firing into the Iron Circle. So they go in, and I just fluff every invulnerable save that I'm called on to make.
Jesus.
Just all of them. The Iron Circle just get absolutely decimated by these Dreadnoughts. My Leviathans, I managed to like take down the original Dreadnoughts that they were facing off with, but now they've got something else to deal with. One of them doesn't even manage to finish off the original Dreadnought, so he's stuck in combat another turn into my turn. And I'm really getting whittled down, and he doesn't need any help anymore, so he ends up scoring 6 points in his turn, to which I only score 2. So he's now on 18 points to my 6. Turn 4,
What?
his main Contemptor, right, charges in, finishes off my Iron Circle, like, and my Warlord, my Warsmith, everything. Leviathans are done. And I'm just like basically just on the dregs. Like he's like about a kind of tactical squad, pin a Thalax squad, so that I at least don't get like absolutely whitewashed and like tabled. Managed to do it. I was going for my secondary objective. Like didn't manage to get that with the tactical squad, but got absolutely creamed. He ended up getting 26 like normal victory points. He got Last Man, got Slay. And he got Demonstration of Power, which was kill a character in a challenge. So he got like 29 victory points to my 6. It was great. We didn't bother counting them at the time because it was just so stuck.
That's
now
awful.
One of the things that I'll say is, and I had great games every game of the weekend. Like Stefan's was really good. My game against Jens was really chilled out. My game against Anton was really fun. My game against Chris, really fun again. But Hermione managed to make it fun with such a horrendous list. So I'd just like to say that rather than you being like, oh, what a complete twat.
Oh no, I met Hermione. He was a lovely man.
Yeah, he's a really, really nice guy.
He really, really lovely guy.
Whilst playing that absolute horrendous filth.
And you know what the weird thing is? I've never seen a man make you look like a midget, but Hermione ended up doing that because he was like
so does Pontus.
Yeah, like the northern reaches, they're bred big, they're huge. Like I felt like somebody's child a lot of the time. Pontus gave me a hug and like engulfed me. I was like, oh my god, like I'm like I don't even come outside. I don't even think I came to his armpit. I was like, oh my god, how are you this big?
Yeah, so go on, your game 4. What happened there?
I played Christian, who had a absolutely gorgeous Ultramarines army. And he was taking the interlocking tactics and Locus Loctera. Right of War.
Yes. So that's the Ultramarines Right of War that allows you to pick different
commands that you give to your units, like re-rolling your ones for your hits and plussing one to your ballistics, your leadership and stuff like that.
Yeah. Now, so can I just say, what will be on the bottom of this video when Phil's been talking is just like the army shots for everyone. If anyone wants to check out the army at this point before I actually get a game in with him next round, it's Magoo Miniatures or Magoo Models on Instagram, so everyone can check it out there because he won Best Painted.
Did he?
Yeah. So anyway, go on. Talk.
This makes me feel a bit better about this now. Then so he had 10-man last cannon squad with apothecary and master of signal, a Scorpius, a 5-man full-man terrorist squad, a 10-man suzerain squad with biomancer librarian, praetor in a land raider, 3 tactical squads, 2 in rhinos, and a plasma predator. So this army did not come to mess about.
Javelins.
And 2 las cannon javelins as well with multi-melters. So this army did not come to mess about. And he was like pretty clear. He's like, yeah, this is like got like some serious firepower. Again, the objectives were placed. It was square deployments, opposite square deployments, I believe.
No, it was diagonals.
Oh, diagonals. And do you know what? Just put the numbers on for the diagonals. I hate working it out myself. I'm such a simpleton. I was so confused at how to do it.
What do you mean you're so confused? How have you not had to play this mission? This is even my favourite deployment.
So what's the numbers then on it?
12 from the centre line.
No. You know exactly what I'm asking. And it's like you can measure up
I find it easiest doing the centre line and then you put a tape measure on the 12 and you know it's 12 off one way and 24 the other.
It's just that it's just hard when you've got a load of terrain with putting dice out. If I had a plumb line or something like that, it might be a bit easier. The objective scored more points the more that you were going through the turns. I had my Thalax sat on one. I had my Thalax sat on one in No Man's Land, and my Castellax sat on one in my deployment as well. So I was controlling 3 objectives for the majority of the game. And it although we had a lot of firepower, it was a lot of stuff where he was relying on Feel No Pains and Artificer armor to keep him alive. And a lot of my stuff just ignored that and ignored the cover that he was sat in. So in turn 2, one of my Thanatars used a plasma mortar and overcharge, got 22 hits on his last cannon squad, killed it in one turn. His Land Raider in turn 2 was popped. His Suzerain then were killed in turn 3 because he had his Praetor in the unit, and the Praetor had, is it an Argamastus shield?
The boarding shield that's not a boarding shield.
Yeah, but it doesn't give you heavy.
No, because it's just a piece of war gear and it just does what it says. Like I know that sounds stupid, but it's not like a normal boarding shield. It doesn't take up a hand, and it doesn't give you heavy.
So based on that, and because of that, I then had this. I had the unit lost heavy, so he wasn't able to re-roll his 2-up save for my blast weapons, and he just started chewing through them.
Yeah, and he's doubling out as well because
doubling out his Suzerain. Yeah. He didn't react with his Librarian to give them toughness 5. I'm not too sure why.
So he thought he didn't realise it was a shooting attack. He thought it was like because obviously I played him next game.
Right.
He thought it was like the turn off reactions one where you pick a phase.
Right.
So he was sat there going through all these doubling outs from you, thinking that he couldn't react with it when he could have mitigated it a bit.
Yeah.
He also thought you couldn't sweep with heavy.
Yes, you told me about that afterwards. So, turn 3, Christian said to me, he's like, I can't win this. Like, it's only damage mitigation. And it's quite sad when you actually come to that realization. You know, no matter who you are, when you do that, it's quite sad. And he's like, oh, I can't beat this. I can't do it. So I was like, well, do you want to carry on playing? He's like, yeah, that's fine. Let's carry on playing turn 4. So we did. And it came to like 12-2. The full Mantaris, though, having only 5 of them, so keeping them quite cheap, were great. They were just like a Swiss Army knife. It's like, oh, here's 20 shots at strength 5 on your Thalax. Oh, here's strength 8 AP2 Thunderhammers being shot at your Thanatars. And it was actually quite...
And they've got night vision.
and they've got night vision,
And
and
they
they're
can see
hitting
out
on
of line of
twos,
sight.
and the re-rolling ones to hit. And it was just like, oh my... Yeah, because of the Locust Loctora.
Right, okay.
So he was a super great guy. Really, he's like looking coming over to the UK. I'd really want to play him again. His army was harsh. Like, I thought it was harsh, and I loved that. And unfortunately, just the way the mission was, the scoring got away from him a little bit, and then after that, he just couldn't really pull it back. The Myrmidons in this as well came up on the left flank and was just popping tanks, killing tactical squads. They just like, oh, what should we kill now? We'll just go after that. And there was like one Myrmidon left and the Secretary Exarch, and they were just causing loads and loads of issues because at toughness 5, he didn't have anything that could double them out.
Yeah.
So they just kept on ploughing up the field. And I think this was the first time I got Scornful Fire off as well, which is the mech reaction. And I was like, when I said it, and I was like, you're an absolute horrible man. Why are you doing this? You don't need to. And it makes it sound like it was really one-sided. It wasn't. I genuinely thought he was going to shoot me off the table. And I think just a couple of unlucky dice rolls and also looking at the priorities, targets. I mean, he'd never played mech before. So I would have gone after the Thanatars and then gone after the Myrmidons, then the Castellax, or because it's a scoring game and it's only 4 turns. Kill the Thalax, kill the Castellax, just hope you don't get shot off the board. But he kind of didn't know where to go or what unit to do. And we had that chat afterwards. And he's like, oh, I was trying to get rid of your Castellax. I was like, that's one of the toughest units. Like, get rid of the Thanatars.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to get rid of anything.
Although he's not going to do it in one turn with a bit of support, you can remove a Thanatar a turn.
Yeah.
And whereas a Castellax unit, one turn to chew through it, you're going to be doing well to go through it, even with your entire army, that Castellax unit.
Yeah. And there was just like, I was not abusing, because that makes it sound like I was finding a loophole. I was definitely using the Cyberthurgy powers to the best of their abilities, and like everything was ignoring the wounds of shots. And when he realised, I was like, they ignore because he kept just shooting at things. So he'd shoot at it with like the plasma blast cannon. So the predator, the plasma predator.
Yeah. And
I was like, I just ignore that. And he's like, all right, okay. And then he'd shoot me the wrong way around. So he'd shoot me with like the heavy bolt, shoot me with the multi-melter on the javelins, but then not with the last cannon second. And I was just like, oh, I'm ignoring the last cannon then. And after he'd missed the melter, again, he learned a lot from it. Great game, great guy. I really enjoyed playing him, to be perfectly honest. Really pleasant.
Yeah. Okay, so then that's into game 5, of which I played Magoo models. We then played a Seek and Destroy, which is the 18-inch bubble in the circle. And we had an objective in each deployment zone and in the centre. So there's 5 total objectives. You scored 1 if you controlled 1 objective. You scored 3 if you controlled 2 objectives. You scored 5 if you controlled 3 or more objectives. And with night fighting being in it first turn, I managed to roar forwards and get onto 2 objectives, or roundabouts 2 objectives in my first turn, which then he had to then knock me off them. Because even though scoring didn't kick in until turn 2, it allowed me to set the pace a little bit. And with my Iron Circle and Leviathans I deployed in the centre, and stomping them up to that central objective allowed me to control the tempo a little bit, in that I could go whichever way I wanted with the Iron Circle, and just like, oh, you're going over there, I'll go over there. So basically, in my turn 2, I scored 5 victory points. Christian had only scored 1. he started really chewing through my units, though. He had his Scorpius, his las cannons, really just getting into it. However, on my turn 2, I failed a stubborn leadership 10 check for Cyberthurgy.
No way!
Yeah. And it meant my Iron Circle couldn't react, weren't ignoring the first shooting wound. And it was like, right, this is the turn to be doing damage to the Iron Circle.
Yeah.
And he did. Like, he put so many wounds through. My Magos was getting low, like really low, as in like down to 2 wounds before we reached combat in turn 3. I cheated, Phil, turn 3, which we near immediately found out and was like...
What did you do?
I thought Cyberthurgy, so Cyberthurgy comes in 2 stages, doesn't it? You do one and it goes off automatically. You pick another and then you roll the dice. So I thought, if I fail, because like you pick it in 2 stages, you just don't get the second stage of it. Untrue.
There's a one line right at the end that says that you fail both.
Yeah, so I movement reacted my Castellax, sorry, my Domitar, and I made a charge slightly longer for his suzerain. Luckily, he rolled so abysmally with his suzerain charge that it didn't matter. But like, I did get a movement reaction when I shouldn't have, which he was very gracious about. Like, I was apologetic as I could be. Was like, oh, we'll move him back, like, and continue with it. He was like, no, let's just get on with it. Just because I think the amount of wounds that he'd done to me prior to that probably made him quite happy to just be like, yeah, whatever. Because it is the most other than by the lion, it's the most easily they've been killed, I would say.
Wow.
Because it's just the amount of las cannon shots going into them. They took on 2 contemptors, which I don't think he was expecting. Do you know, like, even in a wounded state, they took on 2 contemptors. But they just got chewed through, and my Warsmith and Magos dragged down. So it started to reverse fortunes, and I managed to score 3 victory points in my turn 3 because I had my Thalax that were like sheltering behind a wall. Just about managed, basically 4 tactical marines survived by jumping in a rhino, getting blown out of the rhino, hiding behind the rhino from a las cannon squad. Do you know, so having this full ordeal of doing everything I could to make them survive. So I managed to score 3 objectives on my turn 3, which, even though he scored 3 objectives on his turn 4, and I think if we'd have done 6 turns, he'd have scored the most every turn from then on.
Yeah.
But because I'd managed to dictate the pace of the game in a 4-turn game right at the start, he just didn't have a chance to catch up, really. So yeah, Magoo hopefully will be getting over to Greetings from the Warp this year. So hopefully people will get to see his Ultramarines army on the channel.
He's already been to Greetings before and he won Best Painted there.
Yeah, he did. Apparently he's got 3 Best Painted awards for them Ultramarines this year.
Wow. Wow, I can see why.
Yeah, he's a lovely army. But that was my final game. Phil, do you want to take us through your final game?
Not really.
Go on.
So I played Mika, one of the Finns that had come down or across. I'm not very good with geography.
Down. I think if they drove, they'd have to go up and then
down. Yeah, up and then down.
Yeah.
So he had an Ultramarine, an Imperial Fists army, with 10-man autocannon squad, 6 jet bikes, all with heavy bolters, 2 Sicarans.
All of which hitting on 2s because they're fists, right?
Exactly, hitting on 2s. Then he had a Land Raider with 5 Terminators and a Captain in there. And 3 Contemptors.
Right. Heavy contempt to meta in Finland.
And the thing is with this, like it was a complete hard counter to my army.
Yeah.
Because the Thalax disappeared in a whiff of smoke.
Oh, because it's all the AP4s with a lot of shots, right?
Strength 5, AP4, 4 shots each.
Yeah.
They just disappear. The autocannon squad was good at putting wounds down on Castellax.
Because it's just the right strength that they needed.
Yeah, and he must have played mech before because he knew exactly which Thanatars he wanted to go for at what point. He was like, "Oh, I'm taking out that one because that's got no mech bullshit," and that was his running phrase, calling me a motherfucker and saying that this is just mech bullshit. But yet he beat me like 15-1, and honestly, I was just like taking off my models and scooping off my models. The Myrmidons died. The Myrmidons died first. Then it was my Thanatar Calyx. Then my 2 Thanatars. A unit of Thalax had gone, and this was like turn 2.
Yeah.
And by that, at turn 3, I turned around and was like, me and him were drinking, we were having a laugh, having a joke, and he was a really nice guy.
Oh, why? Because you got to drink on the second day, didn't you?
So I was driving on the way home.
Bastard.
And I was like, in turn 3, like, I was like, oh, Mika, I'm not being rude or anything, but, like, you've won this. He's like, yeah, I know. I was like, okay. Very, very honestly, I was like, mate, like, do you want to just chill out a little bit? Like, he's like, let's finish turn 3, so at least we've got turn 3. So we did turn 3, and then called it after that, and I packed up and everything.
And cried into your army case.
Yeah, of a broken model.
Available.
But that it wasn't. I didn't pack up because I wasn't having a good time, and it wasn't like, I'm packing up because this is awful. I was packing up because it was so evident he was going to win, and we had a flight to catch. And Mika also,
what you want.
And Mika was also very nice in the fact that he agreed to play me early as well, so I could get my flight, our flight. But he was a great guy. We sat around just for ages talking. All the other Finnish lads were coming over. Hermione was coming over. It was a good atmosphere around our table. Mainly because I was like crying an awful lot as I was scooping off huge mech robots. But no, it was really good. It's really good. Really enjoyed it.
Fun game.
I really played. It was. Do you know what? It's Scandus. Every game was a fun game.
Yeah, but that's one of the things, isn't it? It's, even with the harder list, like I said with Hermione, he managed to make it a really fun game to play. There wasn't anyone that I was like, that guy was a fucking douche. Like, I don't want to play that guy ever again. Like, even the hardest list that I think was there was Hermione's. And he managed to make it a really fun game to play against.
Yeah. I think that was the thing. It was the mentality that was there. There were people that were taking things that were rock hard, and like I was like, oh shit, man! Like I'm not going to do anything against this. But they wore it with a smile, and they were nice, and they were always friendly, and they never got like that sort of like war game giddiness when they were about to win. They just kind of like, oh man, it sucks. That. Do you want a beer? Do you want me to get some food or something like that? Do you know what I mean? Just a really friendly, pleasant atmosphere all the way through.
Yeah, agreed. Like it's an event that I've really enjoyed going to over the years. Like just the Swedish scene, I think is very good. Like I want to go up to another event in February or March in like northern Sweden. I don't know whether you got a pass to go as well.
I have, because she's coming with me.
Right, so hopefully we'll be going to that one. Hopefully that us already planning on going to another event like demonstrates to people that how good this event actually was. And it's one thing as well, for anyone in the UK that's watching this at least, by the time you've paid money to get there, like the price of a travel lodge, if you go to a Warhammer World event, it costs you a tank of petrol to get there. it costs you an overinflated hostel price.
Hostel?
I know. And if you book far enough in advance, you can get one's got flights for 27 quid to go to a Scandus like 2 years during COVID. 27 quid. So it's not astronomically higher. Even for an average flight price, you're talking 100 quid. The hotel's no more expensive.
So
if you go to a hostel, it's much cheaper.
I worked it out, I think, on the Sunday when we got back, or it might have been the Sunday when we were in the airport, that if I went and booked the flight that I got now, I'd pay £100 for it.
Yeah.
Now, ours was slightly more expensive. I'd pay £100 for it. Then if I went and booked my hotel now, I could get a room, not in the Scandic, I don't think, that we were staying in, but a room very similar to that in a different hotel for around about 75 quid.
So I stayed in one called the Generator Hostel, and Scandinavian hostels are very clean. Do you know it's not like a manky, horrible hostel? It's like a really clean, just happens to be a hostel. I got 23 quid a night. So it's just a place to sleep. So you can do these trips on a budget that I think is competitive with going to an event in the UK.
I think so.
Like competitive, maybe not as cheap when you factor in the flight price, but not too far off. And not enough to be put off, I don't think.
I think just the welcomeness that I got, or I felt I got. I mean, there was lots of stuff there. Chris was over the moon to see us, and everybody who'd made a journey there. I met Tez, who was flew from Bahrain, from Alabama. So he was really
Bahrain, yeah.
Yeah, so he was great to speak to and meet. Was it Garrett, the Irish?
Cracknos.
He needs to get a second Cracknos. Garrett, the Irish lad. Mm-hmm. So met all these people that I've never seen on the scene at all, and all came together at this one event, and I think it really, really worked. The people make events, and this definitely makes it. The people that were there.
Yeah. And with that, I think we'll close it out. Hopefully everyone has enjoyed listening to our rundown of Scandus. If you've not managed to get there before, I do encourage everyone to go. And cheers for coming on yet again, Phil.
No worries at all. Thanks for having me.
It's all right. Everyone do the YouTubey stuff. Bye.